Hello, booktubers. It's Rick again. I thought I'd make another project here and see if anybody watches it. I had a couple of people watch the last one. I wanted to take you back to the 50s again. When I was a little boy in grammar school, and our reading material back in those days was what we call funny books. Of course, they're called comic books these days, but they were funny books back then, and spent a dime on them, which was a lot of money to us little kids. We had to collect a lot of bottles along the highway to cash in 2 cents a piece, but still, they were worth it, except my uncle. On my other channel, people are well aware of my uncle, whose name was Clyde. He was 4 years older than me, and I lived with him Monday through Friday through most of my grammar school years, at least the first 3 years. At any rate, my uncle, Clyde, didn't get the regular funny books that we got. We got, Tim Holt, Tom Mix, Bugs Bunny, Heckle and Jekyll, those kind of things. He got House of Terror, those EC comics that banned so many comics through the investigations that went on due to the high amount of horror and how explicit the drawings were. I read those same funny books until the day that I read one of his, and that night I had nightmares. Screamed out in my sleep. My mother came in to see what was wrong with me, and she figured I had been reading her brother's funny books, the horror comics. So she had a long talk with my Uncle Clyde. And I never saw those funny books again in that whole time that I was living with him. So I don't know if he still bought them and hid them well, or if he was just told never to bring those in the house again. At any rate, what all this is leading up to is the story that I read back then. I couldn't have been more than 8. Yeah. It was back in like 54 when I was about 8 years old. And this particular story scared the heck out of me. It was by Jack Cole. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Jack Cole and he's the one who originated Plastic Man, but he also drew for the horror comics. And this particular story that stuck with me until now was called Custodian of the Dead. Now, it doesn't look particularly horror or anything, but it was about this grave keeper who robbed the graves after the people were buried. During the night, he would go out there and dig them up, take off the rings and all the things on their fingers. But where this story opens up is he went into the ground, opened up the casket, and as he opened up the casket, the 2 feet were moving slowly and raggedly through this huge hole in the casket. And he looked into that hole, and it was a tunnel. He couldn't see where it went because it was too dark. And he found out it was giant rats that had stolen his prized possession. So he went into the tunnels after it. Well, needless to say, giant rats in tunnels where I just, as a kid, claustrophobic, didn't want to do that. Well, that's what brought me to nightmares and my mother cutting off those selections of funny books for me, and possibly for my uncle too. At any rate, come to find out, years later, whenever I discovered Henry Kuttner, this is a collection of some of his stories. I have all 3 volumes. But the very first story he ever wrote was called The Graveyard Rats. That was published in Weird Tales in March of 1936, a long way from 1954. But this, when I sat down and read this, boom, I couldn't help but remember that story by Jack Cole. He had stolen this story and made his own out of it through all these horrific images that he drew, as well as the story. But at any rate, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about, was how a story from when I was 8 years old stuck with me. It was like the last one I talked to you about. It stuck with me all those years until I found this author and read his first published short story. And I just realized right away, that's the same story. So, I may not have read a lot of books when I was a kid, but I did read a lot of funny books. And some of those stories, even in funny books, stuck with me for years and years. So, excuse me, I'm drinking a cream soda. At any rate, that was just another trip down 1950s time I wanted to take you. And then back to the present. But what I'm reading now, today, is Secrets We Kept by Laura Prescott. And this is the story of how Dr. Zhivago came from Russia, or the USSR, to the States. I'm not too far into it, but it's very good. It's supposedly how it happened that his novel was smuggled out of the USSR and typed up and printed over here and published over here. Very good book. And I don't know if you want to see these or not, but I got a stack of books in the mail today. I got to stop buying books. I watch you guys, and something looks really interesting, so I want it. So I buy it. This was one. I can't remember which of the classics folks was talking about it, but he said this is one of the best on explaining art that he had ever read. So I wanted that. Then this one, I used to have a copy of this years ago. W. Somerset Maugham. Very good writer. Always enjoyed his things. And I saw this on the cheap and I said, I want that too. And then, these all were on the porch just a few minutes ago. This is Sherwood by Park Godwin. I don't know if anybody's familiar with him. I wasn't, but I watched, what is the who's the gentleman that does the up the library ladder? He was talking about that one, and it sounded good. I'm not sure who was talking about this. The Maid by Nita Prose. At any rate, something about it made me want to get it. And then I've been listening to the 50s, and they were talking About Whittaker Chambers. So I got this because I wanted to know about Whittaker Chambers after hearing him being spoken of on that audiobook, The 50s, by David Habershoff. I can't remember. And then, hang on, still got 2 more. No, I got 3 more. Paperback Jack by Lauren D. Estelman. I bought this, I know, several years ago. I've looked for it and looked for it. Couldn't find it, so it's probably one of those ones that got lost in the mail, and because I order so many things, I didn't keep up with it. So I ordered it again because I definitely want to read that. Then, let's see. Park Godwin, another, was The Last Rainbow. This is about Ireland, and I take it St. Patrick, which sounded good. And it's still the guy up the ladder. I'm not sure what. My memory's not the greatest. But the ladder's in it, and you're looking upward as his title comes forward. Most of these, I think, were for him. And this one that he talked about sounded really good. Heroes Die. So I got that. So I have a lot of books sitting here. I don't know when I'm going to get to them. I'll probably die before I get through them. But anyway, I thought I'd show my little haul while I was yakking. All right. Take care of yourselves. May God bless you till the next time. Bye-bye.